Hello, everybody. Thanks, Kevin. I think your passion might have shown through and that our president might have some big shoes to fill. I see a lot of friendly faces in the room, but for you that don't know me, my name's Tom McMahon, and I'm COO at Videology. And Kevin really talked about the fact that the changes that are going on in the premium video and TV ecosystem are affecting both advertisers and media companies. We're going to talk to both groups today, but first we're going to start with a media company perspective. And to do that, we're thrilled to have Audrey Steele, who's Executive Vice President of Research, Insights, and Strategy for Sales for Fox Networks. Audrey is tasked with, amongst other things, doing what Kevin described, dazzling advertisers across the Fox platforms. She's a true industry pundit. She's been able to see the transformation of this ecosystem from a number of different perspectives. Prior to Fox, she was SVP of Strategic Media Resources at Zenith Media. Please join me in welcoming Audrey to the stage.
This pink fuzzy couch for the world, so I'm glad to be here.
I'm not sure those pillows have a lot of lumbar support. Apologies.
Good morning, everybody.
So first off, Audrey, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
We really appreciate the opportunity to get your insights, as we head into the 2017 upfront season. And, as we were preparing for this, and I was, doing some reading, I read that Fox Networks reaches over 1.7 billion households globally. So you truly have a front seat to these changes that are going on in the market. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your business has evolved over the last 5 years, really how the market has changed.
Yeah, so it's actually 1.8 billion.
Excuse me, I have old data.
If I can put in a plug for us as content creators, I think that we see ourselves as doing something right in that realm, in that we garnered more Emmys this year than any other ad-supported media company. FX is on an incredible roll where it's dominating the top 10 lists of so many different reviewers within the industry, from The Americans to American Crime Story to American Horror. You may be seeing a theme here. To this year's Atlanta and Feud and Baskets and on and on. I mean, it's having this really incredible creative renaissance. So the quality and originality of the content has never been better. I'll stop in a second, but Empire, the highest rated non-zombie show in the culture overall, was quite an accomplishment. And of course, in the sports realm, with what was arguably the most dramatic, most emotional two sports events of the year, the World Series last fall, and of course the heartbreaking Super Bowl this year. I mean, again, I think that we're doing something heartbreaking if you're not a Patriots fan,
I won't take
which
that
I am
personally.
truly not. But we think that we're doing something right, and that is the starting point for doing something right for our clients. It's creating an environment where this premium long-form content that has this deep immersion from viewers allows them, the brands, our clients, to tell their brand stories persuasively and at length. But you refer to the change in the ecosystem. There's no question that it's changed really dramatically, and most dramatically in the last few years, where sort of the run-up to 5 years ago, we'd heard how rapidly things were changing and how consumers were adopting new ways of viewing. And we saw it in small doses incrementally, but all of a sudden, say about 4 or 5 years ago, it just, it really started a dramatic migration, let's say, to new platforms. And so, the ecosystem has changed, wrought by technology advances that have guided our content distribution strategy. Particularly the broadcast networks, because the broadcast networks were really first to really widely distribute content, in nonlinear venues. But of course, that's come with challenges, particularly measurement challenges. Starting with desktop, then mobile, And, we're really only now beginning to round the corner with connected devices in terms of, just sort of your basic ad validation measurement. So, no shortage of challenges with this new distribution, as I think was referred to in Kevin's talk. But the great thing, I guess, for consumers is there is this deluge of fantastic content. Like, I don't think that we ever thought it was possible that there would be this much like great, award-winning, incredibly original, valuable content, and so many different ways to access it. But of course, just like you and me, we have 2 eyes and 16 waking hours, or like if you're like probably most of the people in the room, more like 20 waking hours, 22 waking hours to sample all this great content. And so the fragmentation across all of these different options makes it so much more difficult for any individual entity to scale, and aggregate an audience. And again, those are challenges that we're faced with. But I would still say that despite fragmentation, that television advertising in all of its forms is as effective, if not more effective, and believe it or not, more efficient than it ever was before. And I'd say that's precisely because of the tools that we're using to plan and to measure it. And so advanced TV is just the latest evolution in developing a set of tools that helps us to use TV so much more effectively, so much more efficiently to drive results, so that we get all of the benefits of precision targeting of the digital pure plays who will steal share from us if we're not careful, as well as the great advantages of premium content as a messaging environment.
It's really interesting. You touched on something that people say it's the new golden age of television, and it's kind of the opposite of the previous golden age of television, where you had consolidated audiences, but not a lot of content. And today we have unbelievable content, as you say, led by Fox. As a Patriots fan, I will say that was my favorite show of the year, personally.
Heartbreaking.
So you mentioned, I want to kind of dig into a couple points you raised, if we can, and one is fragmentation. I mean, it's obviously a huge industry problem. You can't pick up a magazine or read a blog without them talking about fragmentation. But, it is something that I think we do need to continually discuss and talk about how you can bring those audiences together across platform. And so, what are some of the challenges that you see with fragmentations? What are the viewing habits you're seeing across the Fox platforms that may be different, or how do they compare with other networks?
Well, what I referenced before about the broadcast networks being sort of first to the party in wide distribution of content on nonlinear platforms, the fact that Fox is, or the Fox Networks Group is the youngest of broadcast-led major network groups, has meant that migration and adoption on nonlinear platforms happened quickest and most dramatically for our networks. And so, what I mentioned before, again, about measurement challenges, that was certainly part of it early on. Part of it is a perception challenge as well with measurement, in that there's the perception that because we don't report a total audience, an audience that's a roll-up of, of all of the places that you can access our content, that we're shrinking at this dramatic rate. And it is true that with migration to other platforms, linear is certainly shrinking, and those are the numbers that you see reported, every single day. But the ability to report, whether it's Nielsen's TCR or some other measurement resource that is a program-based resource that doesn't necessarily obligate monetization strategy, because we've been monetizing nonlinear content in different ways for many years, for as long as we've had it. But the ability to communicate to the industry that we are not, at the fore of a dying medium, I think would really be tremendously helpful. I mean, what we see from our own analytics and sort of cobbling together the different resources that we use to understand our audiences, while, migration, I'm not going to suggest that it's, a one-to-one relationship of viewers migrate off linear and they show up on our viewers, that is, they show up on another platform. Clearly fragmentation is happening. Clearly there is a deluge of choice and really good, valuable, viable choice, much of it not ad-supported, so it doesn't present opportunities for our advertisers either. But a significant amount of that viewing that's lost to linear is actually showing back up on other platforms. I'd say as much as 2/3, maybe more in the case of some demos. And so the ability to communicate to the marketplace so that the continued value perception of the medium is underscored would be really helpful to us.
And so you've talked a lot about cross-screen, how you bring those audiences together. Is there anything else you can share in terms of how you manage cross-screen execution?
I mean, it's what I said. We sell the platforms together and separately. The monetization has certainly of connected devices, which is overwhelmingly where our viewing, our nonlinear viewing has been challenging from a measurement standpoint. But we are beginning to crack that code increasingly, as is the rest of the industry. And it's especially important to us because about 1/3 of our overall audience for entertainment is on nonlinear platforms. Most heavily, I would say, on Hulu, but also on our owned and operated sites and VOD, or VOD, as the digital natives call it.
Sure. And so, kind of switching gears a bit, other thing that you mentioned was advanced TV. And as Scott mentioned, we'll leave the term programmatic TV aside because I think that can have some weird connotations, but speak about advanced TV and just for definitional purposes, it's use of data and some level of automation for TV advertising. And I know that Fox has been moving very swiftly in this area, and I wanted to talk about what is your position on advanced TV marketplace?
I think it's been, our move in this direction. I think we have not been as public as some of our competitors with the development of an advanced TV optimization product, but it's been super important and helpful to us in that it allows us to forge a deeper level of conversation, deeper relationships with our clients that are much more focused on business objectives and much less transactional. We're getting so much good information through these relationships, getting target information, but also helping clients refine targets and talking through business issues and talking about attribution in ways that we didn't previously. It's been beneficial to both sides of the industry, I think.
And so it sounds like TV buyers are leaning in and talking about different ways that they can transact with you.
Increasingly, yeah, absolutely. I don't want to suggest that that we've been overrun with with buyers looking to do business wildly differently than they have before. But it's absolutely happening, and it's happening at a rapid pace.
And can you speak any more specifically about what you're doing in advanced TV, kind of this year, or as you see this evolving?
Yeah, so you probably know that we announced a tool called Audience Insights Manager, AIM. We're not great with names. Last year, and we are trying to. It's basically as I said, it's a linear optimization platform that we have developed with Videology as our technology partner. So thank you for all the help and insight that you've given us. And it's the initial focus was on improving the quality of the buys of existing clients. So there is an ability, of course, to if you want to spend more money, you look at an incremental buy. We can do that, but it was really about optimizing existing buys and improving again the the delivery against key consumer targets. And where we're trying to evolve that this year is primarily focused on expanding data sets. So we started out by focusing mostly on Nielsen as the currency. So Nielsen tied third-party data sets for consumer target development, and now we're trying to bring in an expanding array of data sets that clients might want to, if not transact on specifically, at least analyze the delivery of our content, for their purposes on.
And you touched on and applying data in different places, and we talked about better data equals better results. So kind of moving over to that specifically, how do you prioritize data and the type of data you use?
Well, I don't mind saying it in this room. I hope none of my colleagues at Fox are here, but we've tended to be sort of cheap. And so we are careful in our consideration of data sets that we take on. So we've been taking the temperature of where the market's moved, listening to our clients in terms of listening to and encouraging our clients in certain directions when they didn't necessarily seem to have a hard and fast rule about where and how and in what data set they wanted their targets developed within. But I would say that we're fairly open-minded. We are really just trying to move in the direction that the market seems to be taking us. As long as the data sets have efficacy. We've learned by working through our tool that there are some data sets that really are presenting difficulties in terms of projecting and forecasting, and so we will, it's been a learning experience to figure out what data sets make the most sense for both of us, for both sides of the business.
Sure, and as you head into the 2017 upfront, what is your view? We've heard in the past that this will be the year of data enablement in television in the past, and obviously you've had a super strong content success, as you mentioned, and which can maybe make the need for data for some folks less important, seemingly. And just wondering your
That's a good
view,
point.
kind of how that breaks.
I mean, I think every year for the last 3 has been the year for data.
Right.
So it has gradually increased its importance within the marketplace. It is absolutely true that that a strong marketplace and the sort of inertia in process that can be the upfront, the kind of the ways of doing business are very entrenched, and so in a strong upfront marketplace, the desire to throw things up in the air and change them radically is less pronounced. But every year it gets stronger. I think it will be incredibly important in this upfront for a number of reasons, and the drumbeat has already started. You've probably seen some big announcements recently, and there will be many more before May.
And on that front, obviously market conditions play a big role, but it seems like education is we've talked about this in the past, about the need to educate, the TV community on the use of data and how they can apply data in the linear world and cross-platform. Do you think that's a big key to adoption over the years?
Sure. I mean, I do think that education is part of it. I'll say again that the TV buying process is fairly entrenched, so it's partly perhaps a knowledge thing. It's also an experimentation. I think that as we begin to do more of these kinds of deals and have the conversations and work out the kinks in the process and sort of grease the wheels and make it operate more smoothly with fewer pain points, that will certainly aid adoption. I think one of the biggest pain points, though, for the industry and for clients where they're in the forefront of adopting these kind of data-enabled solutions, what's difficult for them is that it's a different process from network group to network group, and so it's different data sets, it's different it's different process, it's different integrations, it's different target definitions, and so the lack of interoperability and the ability to scale it and then analyze across a campaign that's a multi-network group campaign is a major impediment that I think that the industry is going to have to address in order for this to scale in a major way.
Well, Audrey, I could literally talk about this all day, and we really appreciate you spending the time with us. I think we're out of time, but I did want to say thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And great luck in the upfront and the new front season. And we look forward to working with you. And please give Audrey a warm round of applause.
Thanks, everyone.